Hello and welcome to English Roundtable. I'm Kevin, and today I'm joined with Zane. And Zane, you are from Australia.
That is correct. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well, yeah.
Excellent.
Nice weather outside, nothing to complain about. So,
Right.
Yeah.
It's getting warmer.
I'm happy
with
that. Certainly, getting warmer. Good cycling weather
Yeah.
coming up. So for me, that's a good thing. I'm happy about that and like the warm weather. Hay fever season's over pretty much. So another good point.
Yeah, of course. And so speaking of weather and being from Australia,
Yeah.
the seasons are switched.
That is
correct?
correct. Yeah.
So we're
Yep.
technically in Japan. It is, we'll say springtime.
That's right.
So it's what? Fall, winter?
Yeah,
in Australia?
going to be heading into the winter season over there. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
It's kind of strange, right?
That is strange.
To me it is.
Yeah, that is quite strange.
Mhm.
And especially having Christmas time in summer,
Oh,
which is
right.
always a little bit weird. But I mean, you get used to it.
Yeah.
But it's always great to experience a proper winter Christmas in Japan.
Oh,
So that's
right.
sort of a novelty for me.
Yeah, that's
So,
true. That's a
yeah.
good point. So you still celebrate Christmas December 25th, but you're out in shorts or
That's right.
t-shirts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, that's got to feel kind of strange, right? To have decorations and a Christmas tree and then, you're at the beach, swimming or you're outside.
It is strange, especially if now that I'm in Japan and I can enjoy Christmas in its proper season.
Right.
When I'm back in Australia for Christmas, if I am, it does actually feel strange to go back to that, even though I've grown up with my whole childhood Christmas experience was always in summer.
Yeah.
So it never seemed strange then.
Yeah.
Not until I experienced it in winter. So
Wow, I never actually thought about
Yeah.
that part about it. So is the advertising a promotion of Christmas? Like, is it Santa Claus in Bermuda shorts, or how is it different from because everything is usually like snow and everybody's bundled up. Is the advertising different?
the strange thing about that is it does still rely heavily on the winter theme.
Really?
So you'll have images of Father Christmas with snow
Mhm.
and Christmas trees covered in snow. And in fact, there's like a snow in a can kind of thing that you can buy. And people would actually use that as part of the decorations sometimes.
Really?
So, yeah. So the winter theme is still prevalent, absolutely.
Wow,
Despite
that's
being in
interesting.
summer, which makes it even stranger.
That is very strange. It's like a Twilight Zone
Absolutely,
episode.
yeah. But I never thought that was weird when I was
Right,
a kid.
right.
But now I look back on it and think that is really strange because you're still going with the winter theme, but
Mhm.
obviously it's in summer. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
So that's got me thinking, are there any other things that have switched because of that? So we've got Christmas being, in a summer type weather or climate. So, yeah, I wonder if there's any other things that switch. Because, the other thing is also, let's say you go visit in the summer in Japan.
Mhm.
What's the situation like with traveling because of like your clothes?
Okay.
Because you're going to have to pack winter clothes when you go, and then the opposite, of course.
Right. Well, it does make traveling a little difficult. And I've seen people, when I've been traveling to Japan from Australia, I've been on a plane load full of Australian people.
Mhm.
And they'll arrive at the airport still in shorts and a t-shirt when it's wintertime here in Japan.
Yeah.
And they're completely unprepared for it a lot of the time.
Oh,
Like
sure.
I've seen them walking, through the terminal in their shorts and t-shirts. And I'm just thinking, you are going to get quite a big shock when you step outside. So,
Yeah, and that's funny
yeah.
that they didn't think about that, of course.
Yeah, I guess not. But for me, I like to, I'm prepared for it because I know what to expect.
Right.
But if you were a first-time traveler, you would definitely,
wow.
quite possibly have some issues with the extreme temperature differences.
Yeah.
And I've seen it, so
Oh, that's
it does
funny.
catch people out.
That's so funny because I would, anytime I'm traveling, I'll look, what's the weather going to be like? I'm surprised, others don't think about that. But
Well, I guess, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people do, but the ones I've seen don't seem to take that into consideration. Maybe they're just overly excited about coming to Japan, especially if it's the first time. So they're not really thinking about the weather, I guess.
Wow, interesting.
For me, that's an important thing to think about.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe Australian people are just quite casual. They'll just deal with it as it comes. And
yeah, I guess so. So would you say the people in Australia are more laid back, more relaxed type of people, or are they, because let's compare Japan because we're both familiar with that.
Definitely.
That's very serious. I feel like it's everything has to be perfect and exact and on time. What's the kind of atmosphere like in Australia?
Compared to Japan, much more laid back.
Okay.
So people are fairly casual. They're happier. I noticed in Japan, a lot of people seem to really prepare themselves before they go out. And like I'll see a lot of very well-dressed people in Japan, even if they're just going out to meet friends.
Yeah.
Whereas in Australia, it is a lot more casual. So you'll see people walking around in flip-flops and shorts and T-shirts, and not that they don't care how they look, but the style is just more casual.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We could maybe even compare like the culture map.
Yeah.
Like high context countries, low context, and being, obviously the outer appearance. Appearance is a big deal in Asia, whereas for us, or I guess not us. I'm from America. You're from Australia. Totally opposite, but I think it's the same kind of background as well.
There's a lot of similar culture.
Yeah. I mean, same. You wouldn't see a lot of people really go dressed to the nines if they're going to just go see friends or think about the outer appearance. The appearance, it's more about the inside. So that is kind of interesting to have that comparison.
Yeah. I guess Australia follows a lot of the trends from America and possibly from Europe as well, but probably more so from America. There's a lot of American cultural influence there with movies and TV shows and things like that. Possibly similar, and I haven't been to America, so I don't know.
Oh, really? Okay.
Possibly similar to in terms of the casualness with America and Australia.
Gotcha.
In Japan, completely different story. And I was just blown away by how well people dress and their general appearance when I first came here. It did surprise me.
Yeah, same. Yeah, the having anything on your body like outside it's always meticulous for a lot of people. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I like it. I'm happy that people take that level of pride in their own appearance. And I'm not saying Australian people are messy, but they just don't seem to factor that in as much before they go out. So
interesting.
Maybe that's part of just their general relaxed attitude, possibly. So.
What would be some other misconceptions people may have about Australia or Australian people? I mentioned before we started today, I don't know much about Australia besides, Sydney Opera House, and then you've got kangaroos, and then you've got frisbees, or not frisbees, boomerangs.
Yeah. I've never seen anybody throw a boomerang. I've never tried myself. I'm sure that there are some boomerang enthusiasts around, but it's not something that you would see. But it is very much an image that people would have of Australia.
Right. What is the background of a boomerang? Do you know?
It's an Aboriginal hunting device.
Okay. Like an atlatl, like that type of.
Yeah. So the idea is, I guess back in the day, the Aboriginal people would use it to hunt probably something like kangaroos, possibly. So if it's thrown effectively. It'll deliver a pretty decent blow.
Yeah,
I guess it takes a fair bit of practice to.
Interesting.
And supposedly, if you throw it correctly, it should come back. If it doesn't connect with whatever you're trying to hit, I suppose. So,
right, because that is the other thing with the boomerang. It's supposed to return back to you.
That's right.
All right. Now I want to try.
Yeah, I'd like to try as well. I'm sure there probably is somewhere you could actually try in Australia, but I've yet to find the place.
Right.
So that would be part of the misconception, I think. A lot of people probably think, there's kangaroos just jumping around the place, and there's, koalas in every tree. In some areas of Australia, that is factual. That is correct. And I'm lucky enough to live in an area when I go back to Australia that does have koalas in trees.
Really?
So I can look out my front room window and I can see koalas in trees.
Really? Wow.
But that's not a usual thing. That's quite unique. So I have even had kangaroos hopping down the street at times.
Wow.
But that's not the reality for most people living in Australia. If you're in a big city in Australia, such as Sydney or Melbourne, it's very much like a Tokyo-esque atmosphere.
Yeah.
So just a big city, plenty of things going on, a lot of restaurants, cafes, entertainment areas, like any big city, I suppose. So a lot of people might have this image of Australia being not backward, but just countryside feeling everywhere, which is not the reality in most places. So there are very big cities as well, Sydney and Melbourne especially. So
yeah, because I mean a large portion of Australia is country, right?
That's right, and uninhabitable as well.
Really?
So most Australian residents would live on the east coast side. So Sydney, Melbourne, Queensland, on that coast, the majority, so more than half, I suppose.
Oh, wow.
Probably even more than that. I haven't actually checked the numbers, but East Coast is very densely populated. And you've got a large area in the middle where you've got Uluru or Ayers Rock, and there's basically nothing happening there.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow. So how have you traveled through, the uninhabited lands?
I have actually traveled a bit in Australia. So I had, many years ago, I had a camper van or a camping car, as they call them in Japan. And I traveled basically half of Australia. So
Oh, wow.
I left my hometown, which is South Australia, traveled to Victoria, New South Wales, all the way up to the top of Queensland, and then travelled across and came right down the middle of Australia through Northern Territory, Ayers Rock, and then back down to South Australia. So I've seen a bit of the country.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
So, obviously, most people just see maps, they see the globe, and it's hard to really know the size of places just based off that. So how long does that take? Let's say you went from the top all the way down. So what kind of time are we talking about with that distance?
If you drove that distance, it would take you many days.
Really?
Many days. Yeah. Like if you drove for a full day, took a rest at night, drove for another full day, you'd be looking at 3 or 4 days probably.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's thousands of kilometers.
Yeah, so it's much larger than you kind of expect. Or
it's a huge place, huge country. So
yeah, that is big.
Roughly 20 times as big as Japan.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that.
Something like that. So
yeah.
For example, my home state of South Australia would be roughly the same size as Japan.
Oh, wow.
And that's just one small piece of Australia.
Yeah. Oh, it's pretty amazing.
It's a huge country.
Yeah, that is much bigger than I was kind of imagining. So you said that a lot of it's uninhabitable, and what would be the reason? Is it desert, or is it just, I mean, there's nothing there?
A lot of it is desert area.
Okay.
And there is literally nothing there. So we'd call that the Australian outback.
Yeah, right. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. And there's literally nothing there. There's no services. There's no electricity. There's nothing.
Wow.
There's no trees even in some places. Like there are literal deserts where it's just sand.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But there are like paved roads.
Yeah. There are paved roads for the main areas. So when I was traveling, I was on paved roads the whole time, except for one experience where I took a wrong turn and ended up on a gravel road, which was not a pleasant experience. And that ended up going for hundreds of kilometers as well. Wow. So, yeah.
And then just one house out in the distance and you don't want to go to that house.
That's right. No, avoid that.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Yeah, again, I didn't know it was that big. And what kind of like activities would people do? I can imagine people going out there doing like dirt biking and those type of activities. Is that something that is popular?
In those types of areas, yes. Things like dirt biking, four-wheel driving is a big thing in Australia. So a lot of people do that as a hobby. Pack up the four-wheel drive, go camping out in the bush or out in the outback. Definitely, a lot of people are interested in that in Australia. A lot of those outback areas are used to raise cattle as well.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, they're technically uninhabitable, but some of them are used for farming as well.
I see.
So,
Wow, very interesting.
yeah.
So, what's the terrain like? I'm picturing mostly flat, but I mean, are there canyons or mountains throughout?
It is, for the majority, mostly flat, but there are some large mountain ranges around the place as well. I wouldn't be able to tell you specifics, but there are definitely valleys and mountain ranges. There are even, in some areas, rainforests. So you can go to Australia and you can see every imaginable type of terrain if you have enough time.
Oh, wow. Yeah, see, I'm learning a lot of new things.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
It's a surprising country.
Yeah, it is.
And even though I've lived there for most of my life, there's still so much that I haven't seen.
Wow.
So,
yeah, pretty amazing. So beyond now the kind of misconceptions, what are some things that people are like to do? Let's go outside the city a little bit, because obviously that's going to be kind of normal to everyone that lives in a big city. So what would be other activities? We mentioned maybe if you go out a little bit, four-wheeling, dirt biking is big. Well, you're on the coast with a lot of places. So like, is surfing or any other activities like that?
Yeah,
popular?
if you're talking about coastal areas, surfing is huge. And it always has been. 50 or so years ago as well, it was big, and it hasn't died down. So there are so many good places along the coast to go surfing. Technically, I think in Australia there are 12,000 individual beaches.
Oh, wow.
But really, I mean, it's just a big island.
Yeah,
so
right. So obviously there's
they
going to
don't
be a
really
beach.
change from beach to beach. But I think technically there are 12,000 individually named beaches.
Oh, wow.
So if you're into surfing or beaches at all, yeah, you can find them basically anywhere along the coast, obviously. So,
very nice.
yeah, surfing is huge. Water sports also very popular. Just things like fishing as well. A lot of people do have their own boat and they'll go out fishing. Or water sports like jet skiing and water skiing is also pretty big.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
What about foods? Is there anything surprising or different that well, I mean, maybe not to you since it's natural, but maybe to someone that came to visit? Is there anything that would be on a menu that would be kind of interesting or surprising?
There might be a few interesting things that you might run across. So if you are interested in trying some crocodile, for example, or possibly some snake,
wonderful.
you could in certain restaurants. Like there
Kangaroo?
is kangaroo. Yeah, kangaroo is actually available in most supermarkets.
Really?
So kangaroo is definitely prevalent. Yeah. For sure.
And how's the taste?
I quite like it.
Really?
Yeah.
What was something you could compare it to?
I mean, it's one of those tastes like chicken kind of foods. Like it's a gamey kind of meat. I generally use it in a curry. Okay. And it works really well with curries. You can just cook it on the barbecue as well. One thing I've noticed with kangaroo meat is you cannot cook it for too long, otherwise it becomes quite chewy. But if you sort of lightly barbecue it, it's actually quite nice.
Wow. So. Yeah, I'd like to try that.
Yeah, it's worth a try.
Yeah, certainly.
There are kangaroo hamburgers as well.
Wow.
And I've actually had a camel hamburger also.
Really?
So there's a lot of camels in Australia running around in the outback.
Another thing I would not have imagined.
And in fact, I almost struck one when I was driving my camper van near pretty close to Ayers Rock. I was just driving along a road there, and a massive camel darted out in front of my car. So it's a pretty close call. And that surprised me. I didn't really expect camels to be out there, but apparently there are a lot of camels in these outback areas.
Wow, very interesting.
Yeah.
All right, my last question about food.
Sure.
What are like the staple foods that you would find in most households? Is there anything that sticks out to you?
Okay, so food in Australia is a bit of an interesting topic because it's a very multicultural country. So you can find every imaginable food there. There's a lot of immigrants from India and China, so those foods are obviously very popular. During the 50s, a lot of Greek and Italian people migrated to Australia, so there's a lot of that influence in food. In terms of Australia's national dish, I suppose you would just have to say it's an outdoor barbecue.
Yeah,
but there's nothing particularly special about that.
Right.
There's no real unique foods. Possibly if you threw some kangaroo on there, could be a unique touch.
Yeah.
There's always Vegemite as well.
That's the one. Yeah, that's what I was.
We had to mention Vegemite. Have you ever tried it?
I believe I've tried it maybe a long time ago, but I couldn't tell you what it tasted like or like what it was. Are you a fan? So I'll have to try it again.
Well, I'm not the biggest fan, but I don't mind it.
Okay.
It's one of those things that I don't mind. I mean, they say, oh, you either love it or you hate it. But I honestly, I wouldn't go out of my way to find it. But if somebody offered me some Vegemite on toast, I would take it.
Okay.
And I would eat it, but I wouldn't actually actively look for it.
Right. It's like, for me, it's like natto.
Yeah.
I won't like seek it out and have it with my meal, but if I was offered it, sure, I'll take some. I can do it.
Yeah. It's very much like Australia's natto, I believe.
Yeah.
A lot of people in Australia genuinely love it.
Yeah.
And it is somewhat of a national food.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's what I was going to bring up as the staple type food that I feel like most Australian people have, or it's what they have in their pantry at least. So.
You would find that in most people's pantries, most Australian people's pantries. So
very, very funny.
And yes, that part about Australia is true. People genuinely do love it.
I do. I do remember not really enjoying it when I tasted it, but I'll give it another go. If you offered it to me, I'll try it.
I was looking for some actually in Japan because I had a class which was Australian history and culture. As part of the GC course, and I thought I'd love to give people the opportunity to try it and try it correctly, how it should be eaten, because there's a very specific way to eat it.
That would be good.
I could not find any.
Interesting.
So obviously not too popular in Japan. I tried the import shops. I tried other places. Could not find it.
Huh. So. Yeah, I would have imagined maybe the import shops would have had it.
That would have, I thought they might. And I remember seeing it many years ago. I have no idea where that was.
Yeah, maybe they caught on. They didn't enjoy it that much to keep ordering it.
The market wasn't there, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, I'd really like to talk more about Australia. So maybe in the future, I'd like to have you back and we can go a little bit deeper and talk about some other parts.
Yeah, I'd be happy to come back and get a bit deeper anytime.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to English Roundtable, made possible by Kanda Gaigo Career College in Tokyo, Japan. If you enjoyed hearing natural English conversation, subscribe and like us wherever you're listening, and check us out on YouTube, Twitter, and our other SNS platforms, which will be in the description for this episode. Head over to the YouTube page to see some of the keywords we used in the conversation and other activities to test your English listening skills. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.